What's up, guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muckraker. My name is Michelle. Today is February 12th of 2024. And last week, in case you missed it, I had a little bit of an Idra versus Mesa debate going on in the chat. And I tried to keep up with it, which was a mistake. And I wanted to say thank you to Zoltan. You were absolutely the man last week by something you said, just made me realize that this was not what I should be doing, reading the comments. So thank you very much, Zoltan the man. I appreciate that. So real quick recap. Last week, I reported on some information that I was given on EDRA, which is the Economic Development Responsibility Alliance, that they had an issue with MESA, which was, or is rather, the Mecosta Economic Security Alliance. Now, both of these alliances sprang out of the fight with Goshen. So MESA is working to get rid of Goshen, and that is their sole purpose. And once Goshen is gone, they're allegedly going to disband. Now, I did not know, I should have known, but I'm only one person and I do all my own research. I didn't know that the vice president of MESA was actually Pete Hoekstra. So again, probably should have known that with all the deep diving I've done on Pete Hoekstra. But hey, you learn something new every day if you're lucky. So realizing that he's the VP is another reason why I have to admit that I do have a bias. I am biased towards my neighbor and against lifelong politicians. Now, you could say he's not lifelong, but he's a career politician. Let's say that. So since 92, Pete Hoekstra has been in politics, and he has some crazy connections that I have found. Erik Prince, which he's the founder of Blackwater and so many other companies. He is connected. He's the brother of Betsy DeVos, which, again, I didn't know that. And Betsy DeVos and him, Erik Prince, have connections with the CCP. So I'm going to get into all that information today. I just wanted to say that I do have friends that are acquainted or associated, rather, with both sides, both IDRA and MESA. And while I do think it's unfortunate that they no longer work together, because in the beginning, they did, before IDRA was even created, they were working together, but it comes down to money. And it's the same thing to me. This is as an outsider looking in. It's the same thing as the Michigan GOP, where you have the grassroots movement. They don't have money. The greatest wealth transfer in history has happened in the last 4 years. And we, the people, don't have the money to fight the politicians who have all the money, and big tech, big corporations, all of that. They've made public-private partnerships, fascism. And so if you want to compete monetarily, it's impossible. To me, you're playing their game and with their rules. And how are you going to win that way? I don't know. Now, I completely understand MESA was created to collect donations for lawyer fees to fight Goshen. So I get it. But where you get your money, and they're not doing anything illegal, but it's a large chunk of money was offered, and I don't think they got it, from a political presidential candidate last year. So this was like 8 months ago. And so that money coming from them, are you beholden to that Republican candidate? You know, and as a grassroots movement, that was an issue. And so from my understanding, that money is the main thing here that broke them apart. Now, I don't like that they are not working together to fight Goshen, but they do have two different missions. MESA is strictly on the disease. Sorry, the symptom of the disease. MESA is going after Goshen, which is a symptom of the disease, economic development corporations, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that the economic development corporations implement. So IDRA is going after more of the symptom than MESA. Now, and both have their place. So again, of course, I'm against Goshen, but the question comes down to money, where you get your money and how you utilize that money. I don't get to see the finances of MESA, how much money they made, and where it's being spent or anything like that. So I just want to say one more thing, and that is people have differences, different opinions. They have different information that forms those opinions. And some people will see a snake in the grass and they think they can pick it up and use it for their benefit. I personally see a snake in the grass, and I just want to warn everybody that there is a snake in the grass and to stay away from the snake in the grass. Now, you can take my warning and you can throw it out the window, and that's your right. Human beings, you're a thinking human being, you can do that. But to me, a snake is going to do one of three things. It's either going to bite you and turn you into a snake. It's going to whisper sweet nothings in your ear and bribe you, or it's going to blackmail you. And so to me, working with a snake, not going to happen. I'm just going to warn people about it. Now, if the snake goes into the village and harms a human being, then a man should take a shovel and chop the head off of the snake. But if the snake is just in the grass, then let the snake be in the grass. And again, I'm going to warn everybody about it. So that's how I feel about that situation. And now I'm going to share all the information with you on Pete Hoekstra that I have found in his connections again with Betsy DeVos, Erik Prince, and the CCP, and they're all connected. And real quick, one more thing before I jump into that. I need to share this. The ballot language was approved for the Axe Michigan tax. So please, 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 if you have time, volunteer, get involved with this ballot initiative. Everybody should want to eliminate property tax so that your neighbor doesn't lose their house to the government, so that you no longer have to rent your house from the government, because basically that's what property tax means. So I'm just going to share this in my Substack post, and there's going to be several other things that I share from here on out in my Substack post. It's free. Please consider subscribing. I share all the references that I share with you here, plus others that I can't get to. And this is the only way I'm going to be able to try to keep up with sharing the information with you guys. So please consider doing that. Now, let's get into this. First things first, Hoekstra in talks with big dollar GOP donors as party chair drama continues. This came out the 26th, and it's exactly what you'd expect. It's money. Hoekstra is absolutely connected. He's a career politician, and he may be the nicest man in the world. I've never met him, but once again, I have to reiterate that he is a career politician. He's been in since '92. He has very powerful connections, lots of money involved, and these people don't operate on the same level as we do. Again, snake in the grass. So you got to be careful with power heads. Because power is elusive and it can be gotten in many different ways. And so it's not right in your face, black and white, and how it gets got. So we're going to share with you some of that and how he's gotten his power, or where his power is located. Through the Republican National Committee, though the Republican National Committee hasn't formally recognized him as Michigan Republican Party chair, that hasn't stopped Pete Hoekstra from already trying to secure party funding ahead of the November election. Hoekstra said he'd contacted both Bobby Shostak and Ron Weiser, former Michigan Republican Party chairs who were powerhouse fundraisers during their time in leadership, and asked them to help unify the party. Once again, it comes down to money. Do we really want to be beholden to Ron Weiser? And in 2020 and 2022, the Michigan GOP had money and they still lost. So money is not a guarantee win. And so who do we want to be beholden to? We, the people, again, we don't have the money to compete. So we need to figure out a different way in order to win our battles. We can't rely on money. Now, I have to share this with you. I remember when Pete Hoekstra and the DeVos family tried to help you raise money. Not everyone is your enemy, or a globalist, or deep state, or any of the other 50 names you've decided to label people in your color revolution to divide the party. This is DePerno. Now, people call him Deep State DePerno, so I just wanted to throw that information out there. Again, this channel is about sharing information. You can do with it what you will. You can disagree with the information. although most of the time I'm sharing with you just facts, there's some times where I do share my opinion a lot on here, but again, thinking human being, you can think for yourself. So Christina Caramo had a fundraiser hosted by Drew Bourne and Drew Weirda, and with a special guest, Ambassador Pete Hoekstra. So why would Pete Hoekstra help her out and then turn on her? These are questions that we should be asking. What was the game here? Is it really just because of money? Or was it a setup from the beginning? Who knows? But this is Pete Hoekstra. You're invited as Michigan GOP chairman. This just came out, a couple days ago, the 7th. I am proud to announce 2 presidential primary dinners on February 25th and 26th. The problem with this, and people have said it in these comments, is that they want $150 just for a ticket. Again, that's not very middle class friendly. Okay, $150 is a lot for the middle class. So we're not even operating on the same level whatsoever. Pete Hoekstra, $150 is nothing. Right here, tickets start at $150. That tells me the working class aren't invited. Now, this came out in 2020, and I thought it was very enlightening, so I'm going to share it. Exclusive Pompeo, DeVos, and other Trump cabinet members have deep financial ties to China. Republicans are now demonizing China, but Trump cabinet members have gotten rich off the Chinese government. Research obtained by Salon reveals that several members of the President Trump's cabinet have cultivated considerable business and financial relationships with the Chinese government over the years. These officials include Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, the nation's leading foreign policy official, and Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, whose family company got a unique clearance from Beijing to reopen a factory in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. How is it that Betsy DeVos, her family corporation being Amway, how do they get special clearance? The CCP runs everything. That's how the CCP works. The document Salon received compiles years of open source information and paints a picture of an administration whose self-interests are often at odds with its rhetoric. The contrast is rendered sharper in the context of the coronavirus pandemic, whose origins in Wuhan, China, have stoked anti-Chinese conspiracy theories at the highest level of government, while spurring the Trump campaign to imply nefarious links between presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden and the Chinese government. Donald Trump can pretend to act tough when the cameras are on, but for decades he and his cabinet personally profited and contributed to China's global rise, shipping American jobs overseas and taking CCP state-sanctioned cash, said Kyle Morse, spokesperson for American Bridge, the pro-democratic organization that compiled the research. When the coronavirus outbreak began, it should come as no surprise that Trump's knee-jerk reaction was to trust and praise China instead of preparing for the pandemic. Morse said, Trump and his cabinet's financial dealings prove we cannot trust them to stand up to China when it matters most. Those efforts, however, are often muddled by Trump's off-script outbursts of admiration for Chinese President Xi Jinping's response to the pandemic. The American Bridge research does not touch on the Trump's family's own financial connections to China, which are manifold. The American Bridge document inverts the administration's story, laying out in detail a history of personal business interests of Pompeo, DeVos, Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, and Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue. Here are some key points. DeVos's profile offers perhaps the most jarring contrast between what the administration says and does. The secretary's husband, Dick DeVos, is heir to the multi-level marketing company Amway, and their family is worth an estimated $2 billion. $2 billion, according to a Forbes analysis. Dick DeVos ran Amway's parent company in the late 1990s and early 2000s when it downsized its U.S. force and invested $200 million in factories and distribution networks in China. By 2010, China was Amway's largest market, yielding $3 billion in revenue, according to Bloomberg. All the products made in China were sold in the country, not in the United States or elsewhere. After enduring regulatory backlash in the U.S. for its pyramid scheme structure, Amway began working closely with the Chinese government to retain access to the market. This February, the Chinese government gave Amway special permission to reopen its manufacturing plant while keeping most facilities shuttered to stunt the spread of the virus. According to Amway, good morning, Dragonfly. Thank you very much for joining me, guys. If you find any of this information useful or new, please consider smashing like. It definitely helps with the algorithm. YouTube doesn't like to promote the stuff that I talk about, so you sharing and smashing like definitely helps. So thank you for joining me. According to Amway CEO Milland Pant, the government made that decision because it believed that products aimed at strengthening the immune system, including Amway's line of Nutrilite vitamins and supplements, were part of the solution to combating the spread of the coronavirus. However, the widespread factory shutdowns in China encumbered Amway's ability to source and package the products. The company chose to ramp up production at its headquarters in Michigan and at another factory in California in order to satisfy the Chinese market. We are almost scrambling to different manufacturing locations and global supplies to meet that demand. Amway sales fell 5% in 2019 thanks to in large part to the Chinese government's heightened scrutiny over the types of products the company markets. The day the factory reopened was announced. Trump, while speaking to reporters in India, expressed his admiration for Chinese President Xi Jinping's response to the outbreak. Xi is working very hard. He is very capable. The country is very capable, and it snuck up on him, but I think he's going to do well, the president said. 9 weeks later, in a May 4th letter addressed to DeVos, 7 Republican lawmakers called out the Chinese government's cover-up of the early outbreak, asking the secretary to investigate U.S. universities that have been funding research connected with laboratories in China. The interests of the two nations appear to have diverged, they wrote. Right. Or are they playing both sides like Ford did in World War II? He was funding both sides of the war. That's what they do. They're doing it now. So they're playing us. And they do it because it helps them make money or gives them power or both. DeVos volunteered to make sanitizer at the onset of the pandemic. Oh, I'm sure. Business, business, business. And business was booming for big corporations, but small business, of course, got decimated. And that was the point. The Chinese Communist Party's cover-up of the early outbreak of the coronavirus immeasurably worsened this disease's impact. By the way, thank you, Hernandez. It's good to see you. And I did not know that. So there is another piece of information that is valuable to put into the whole picture of the matrix that you're getting. Why is it that they get to have special privileges and so on and so forth? We owe it to the American people to hold China accountable to prevent them from doing any further harm to the country, the GOP lawmakers said. DeVos has not yet publicly responded to the letter. Erik Prince, DeVos's brother, who ran the military contracting company Blackwater and connected Trump surrogates with Russian government operatives during the 2016 presidential campaign, was chairman of Frontier Services Group in 2014. Frontier is an oil and mining logistics company based in Hong Kong and partially owned by the Chinese government. Now, I'm not going to get into the rest. This was about DeVos, and I have tons more to share. So, critic of Chinese battery plant in Michigan once lobbied for Chinese lumber company. This was July 6, 2023. And again, you can take or leave this information. Maybe it's not valid for your picture of Hoekstra, and that's, again, you're a thinking human being, you can do that. Former U.S. Rep. Pete Hoekstra, one of the most vocal critics of the push to bring Chinese battery manufacturer plant to northern Michigan, lobbied a decade ago, on behalf of a Chinese lumber and plywood company. In a public statement and media appearances, Hoekstra has railed against Goshen Inc.'s project in the Big Rapids area and has emphasized the threat he believes China poses to the U.S. And that's another thing. For them, it's mostly about China. And I wonder why Pete Hoekstra is on the board. Now, people will say the connection is valuable because of money. And if you need money for lawyers and lawyer fees to fight Goshen, then, it's It's on you on how much you're going to promise for that money. And that's all I'll say. The former Republican congressman and U.S. ambassador to the Netherlands also has been listed as a member of the board of directors for Mecosta Environmental Security Alliance, which was formed to fight the Goshen battery factory. This is the mentality of China, Hoekstra said during an April 18th press conference. Businesses are there to serve the interests of the government. The interest of the government is the Chinese Communist Party and their agenda. But Hoekstra has been less outspoken about his past work for Xi Dihua Import and Export, which has been described as the largest and first public stock plywood and wood veneers manufacturer in China. The Washington, D.C. based firm Dick Stein Shapiro listed Hoekstra as a lobbyist for this company on a 2013 filing with the U.S. House. Hoekstra served in the House from 1993 to 2011 and chaired the House Intelligence Committee. Once again, there is nothing more powerful than the CIA and the FBI. CIA, especially its Central Intelligence. I mean, to make a move on the chessboard, you need to have the information. The CIA has it. So, very powerful individual, Pete Hoekstra. Hoekstra of Holland was hired to monitor federal action and congressional outreach regarding trade, tax, and anti-dumping issues affecting the international hardwood, plywood, and veneer flooring industry, according to the lobby disclosure. In an interview Thursday, Hoekstra rejected the idea that his work for the Chinese company conflicted with his position against China's involvement in the battery factory planned for the outskirts of Big Rapids. Hoekstra said the lumber company wasn't seeking large sums of taxpayer money, and the situation between the U.S. and China was different in 2013 than it is now, as the two countries compete for power in the electric vehicle industry. It was wood flooring, Hoekstra said of his lobbying, which he said he did for the company for less than a year. Supporters of the Goshen project have described it as a game-changing investment and the biggest economic development project in northern Michigan. Goshen plans to bring $2.4 billion electric vehicle battery part to Mecosta County. Overall, the project is slated to receive more than $800 million in taxpayer incentives. And we weren't asked. That is the two biggest problems. It's our money, we weren't asked. And now we don't want it, and they're still pushing it on us. Hoekstra has said that the incentives for the project amounted to putting money in the pockets of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, here's a question for you. Is the enemy of my enemy my friend? I don't know. I am debating on that. You let me know what you think. And there are fundamental differences in the way people look at that. And I completely respect that. And I want to just clarify that I have friends that are Republican. I have friends that are Democrat, although because it seems that Democrats and people on the left do not believe in private property and have a harder time disagreeing and still being friends, I do have a more difficult time being friends with Democrats or people on the left. And people on the right and Republicans, I can disagree with, and we can still be friends. We can still be okay. So, and then people, Republicans and libertarians and ANCAP, anarcho-capitalists, they all believe in private property. And so that is a fundamental value and is one of the reasons why I seem to have more Republican friends. But when it comes to Republican or Democrat career politicians, I don't trust them. And so, yes, I have a bias against them. I will admit it fully. Goshen was founded in China in 2006. Okay. Timmer's group said Hoekstra's actions showed he cashed in, making a small fortune representing a Chinese company directly connected to the Chinese Communist Party. Dick Stein Shapiro reported $30,000 in income from representing the company, the Chinese company, in 2013. Hoekstra was hired to be a senior advisor at Dick Stein Shapiro in 2011. Hoekstra lobbied for a company tied to the CCP that helped kill American jobs. Timmer said, he's no friend of Michigan. He's just another opportunist looking for the next paycheck, regardless of who pays the price. Hoekstra served, as President Donald Trump's ambassador to the Netherlands from 2018 to 2021. Environmental group forms to oppose Goshen. So this was just showing The board of directors for the organization includes local community leaders Jason Cruz, which he is now the supervisor for Green Charter Township. So he is no longer on that board. I do not know who replaced him, but he is now the supervisor for Green Charter Township. Bruce Baker, Terry Hook, Mary Inglesman, and former Congressman and Ambassador Pete Hoekstra. Ambassador Hoekstra has been a tremendous ally to our work, and we are thrilled to have him on the Mesa board, working side by side with our community as we take the next step forward to stop Goshen from taking over our home, Mesa President Jason Cruz said in a statement. Okay, so he left, and Christopher Long is the one who replaced him. Thank you, Brandy, for that information. So now we're getting into Erik Prince. As you can see, Betsy DeVos, the sister. Edgar Prince is the father. Bush contributed to Bush in 2003. Just so you can see some, hopefully you can see these. Maybe I should do this. That will help. I've noticed that for some reason StreamYard, it's blurry, and so maybe if I do this, it helps it out. Because, yeah, the whole point is that you can see exactly what I see. Peter Hoekstra right here, again, 99. So they've been monetarily connected since 1999. But you'll see that I have a couple more articles to share that they're great friends. So, and there's another DeVos brother-in-law. All right. Erik Prince tells his side of the Blackwater USA story. This came out February 19th, 2014. Erik Prince, the automotive supplier Air from Holland, who founded the security agency Blackwater USA and became reviled as a mercenary, brought his crusade to restore his image to the Action Institute on Tuesday, February 18th. Prince, 44, surprised the friendly audience and at some points and reinforced their conservative political agendas at other points during his long-hour remarks. He is on a publicity tour to promote his book, Civilian Warrior, The Inside Story of Blackwater and the Unsung Heroes of the War on Terror. The former Navy SEAL surprised some when he argued the U.S. defense budget is so big and so bloated it served to be counterproductive. I would say make the whole thing smaller, said Prince, noting the U.S. spends more than the rest of the world put together in defense. Is it defense, though, when we're going to other people's countries and doing what we do over there? It's a ridiculous number. It's way too high. It doesn't need to be that much. Prince, who was raised in the Christian Reformed Church and converted to Roman Catholicism in college, put his faith front and center in his presentation. Now, I have nothing against Roman Catholics, but I do know that the Vatican is extremely powerful, and I should have looked into what college. I'm sure it was like Princeton, Yale, or Harvard, right? Where they have these secret societies like Skull and Bones and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of power in the Roman Catholic Church to this day. And so I just thought it was noteworthy, and I wanted to highlight it for you. My faith has always played a great part in my life, he said. If you read the book, you know I've made some great mistakes along the way, terrible mistakes. I'm thankful I have a faith that also includes forgiveness. Hillsdale College. That's here in Michigan, right? I'm pretty sure I've seen Jordan Peterson do an interview with Hillsdale College. What is it, president or who runs that college? I'll have to look more into that. Okay, yeah, it is the one here. Very, what did you say? It's Republican leaning. Prince, who estimated his company became the world's largest employer of former special operations soldiers at its peak, defended the work his operatives performed in Iraq and Afghanistan on behalf of the U.S. State Department. In the Sioux warrior culture, they regard a warrior not by how far you could run or how hard you could throw a spear. They regarded by who your enemies were, said Prince, the son of the philanthropist Elsa Prince Broekhuizen, and brother of conservative West Michigan political activist Betsy DeVos. If the Hezbollah, the Taliban, the Al-Qaeda, and some left-wing people like U.S. Rep. Henry Waxman are my enemies, I'm okay with that, he said, drawing applause from the audience of 200. Perfectly comfortable with the job we did and with who my detractors are. About a dozen of Prince's detractors were gathered outside of the Action Institute's headquarters prior to the event. The group hoisted signs and shouted slogans that labeled Prince as a war criminal. Tom Burke, chairman of Left Forum of Grand Rapids, said their signs were aimed at altering passersby alerting passersby that Blackwater was fined $50 million by the U.S. government for smuggling arms in 2012. This brings me to the fact that these people don't care about fines. They'll just pay the fines. And once again, it reminds me of in 2021, I think it was, when Lake Mead over in Vegas, Lake Mead was really low and they were putting limits on water. I keep bringing it up because it's just a perfect example of how money, this pay-to-play system that's being built, is very dangerous for us poor folk, right? So you can't take a shower but once a week because of water shortages, but the casinos will just pay the fines and keep their fountains going, or the wealthy will keep filling their pools with water and they'll just pay the fine. So Bill Gates, he'll just pay to offset carbon, tax credits, pay for those and keep flying around. And that's just supposed to be okay. So Pfizer, same thing. Before 2020, Pfizer paid the largest fine. I think it was like $1 billion. I should have pulled that up, but before 2020, everybody knew that they were crooks, that they were corrupt. And then 2020 hit, and it was like a spell was put on people. Mike Franz, a local coordinator for MoveOn.org, questioned why a religious organization like the Action Institute was playing host to Prince. Inside the Action Institute, Prince was among old friends, including former U.S. Rep. Pete Hoekstra, the Republicans' ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee during the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. Hoekstra said he was protected by Blackwater personnel without incident during 10 visits to Iran and 5 visits to Afghanistan. I think Erik and Blackwater have been treated very unfairly by the Obama administration, the Democrats in Congress, and the media, he said. This is all fake theater. They're really friends. I'm sorry. Obama and Trump and Clinton, they're all friends. It's just fake WWE. Now this is where we get in really deep. This is Whitney Webb. This is her website, Unlimited Hangout. The Prince and the Spy. So this is going to be a very long article, but very important. She's done excellent work. Erik Prince, the man behind Blackwater, recently teamed up with an Israeli spy, creating a front company with her to help Israeli defense technology providers exploit loopholes and sell their products to the American military. May 12th of last year. For years, Erik Prince, the founder of the mercenary firm Blackwater, now Academe, has been a major source of controversy. Ever since he left Blackwater over a decade ago, Prince has appeared in the news for pushing to privatize several wars, his ties to former President Donald Trump's presidential campaigns, his violation of international arms embargoes, and his unusually close ties with Project Veritas, among other notable events and connections. However, some of Prince's antics in recent years have not yet made it to the news, namely his decision to team up with an Israeli spy to build a very secretive company that has, until now, evaded scrutiny. That company, Comframe Solutions, appears to operate as an intelligence front and explicitly targets parts of the American military involved in highly sensitive combat operations. As its investigation will show, Prince's partner in Comframe, Lital, I should have looked into that. Lital Lesem, has been tied to a series of apparent and admitted Israeli intelligence front companies, several of which have a focus on technology. Yet Prince and his close associate Chris Burgess, Comframe's supposed president, have done everything they can to hide their association with the incredibly secretive company. Why might that be, and what exactly is Comframe up to? Connie says, yes, Hillsdale is in Michigan, and it is very conservative. They have many free online classes on history, the Constitution, classic literature, etc. I love that, I will say. I always love free information, and you can disseminate or agree with it or throw it out the window. But if it's free information, that's awesome. From Army Brat to Cyber Spy. Lesem was raised as an Army brat in Israel and Pennsylvania, USA. She later enlisted in the Israeli Defense Forces as she was truly devoted to the safeguarding of the State of Israel. She quickly rose in the ranks, becoming Operation Officer in the IDF of the besieged Gaza Strip and later becoming a major, a position she continues to hold to this date through her reserve duty activities. According to her LinkedIn, she served in Israeli military intelligence from 2005 to 2011, and more specifically, served in its Signals Intelligence Unit, Unit 8200. She later attended IDC Herzliya, an Israeli university deeply tied to its military intelligence apparatus. There, she met Amir Elichia, and the two would co-create the company Reporty, which later became Carbine 911. Today, Carbine. We'll say that. Carbine was originally founded as Reporty in 2014. They are Unit 8200 veterans, while, see, all these names, I'm just going to say D, and you can read that, hopefully. Maybe I should do this once again. Previously worked for the Israelis' Prime Minister office before it was revealed that Jeffrey Epstein had poured at least $1 million into the company at the behest of his close associate, Barak. Carbine's board of directors, which Barak chaired, not Barack Obama, of course, this is Ehud Barak, included the former commander of Unit 8200, Buchris, as well as Epstein associate turned venture capitalist, Junkerman. In the wake of Epstein's scandal, all of these individuals, among others, were removed from the board and were largely replaced with veterans and former heads of American intelligence and law enforcement agencies. Lesem had left the company in 2017 and has continued to own shares in the company. So that is the Israeli spy. We're going to come down to Prince. Partnering with Prince. Lesem says that she met Prince after she randomly stumbled across his path and joined his team. There, per her website, she managed his business portfolio and his global investments. Her LinkedIn lists her as serving as the executive director of the Global Business Development of Frontier Resources Group from 2018 to 2021. Frontier Resource Group was founded by Prince and is an African-dedicated investment firm partnered with major Chinese enterprises, including at least one state-owned resource giant that is keen to pour money into their resource-rich continent, according to the South China Post. It not only operates in Africa, but also other countries due to its contracts to support China's One Belt, One Road initiative, which were signed in 2019. It's a big club, guys, and we aren't in it. So, again, if you want to have Hoekstra as your Michigan GOP chair, you know, I'm not part of the Michigan GOP. I just think it's a travesty. I think that the grassroots picked Christina Caramo, and money seems to be the major reason why she's getting Das Boot. But, of course, as I reported last week, there is more to it than that. Right off the bat, they were talking about doing a vote of no confidence as soon as 180 days was done. So there's been a concerted effort against her from the beginning from at least a small group of people. Now, I can't prove that Hoekstra was behind it, but right now it seems Hoekstra is the one that's meant to benefit. FRG is a subsidiary of Front Services Group, which Prince also founded. In 2013, he sold a majority share of FSG to the China International Trust Investment Corporation, a state-owned Chinese investment company that is among the largest of the country's state-run conglomerates. CITIC during the mid-1990s was chaired by Wang Yun, who doubled as China's chief arms dealer and was a key figure in the Chinagate scandal of the Clinton White House. As detailed in One Nation Under Blackmail, that is Whitney Webb's book. She has two of them. I still need to pick those up. I heard they're very dense with, just like this. This is very dense with a bunch of details. And they're necessary to understand how interconnected all of these leaders are. China is connected to Russia, is connected to Japan, to Germany, to United States. They're all connected. It's we the people, unfortunately, that lose. And they stole all their money these last 4 years. And now we're supposed to try to fight money, big money with little money. Again, we have to have our strength in numbers. I think that we need to start looking at this battle a little differently. Money is not going to help us or save us because, again, we the people don't have it. As detailed in One Nation, under blackmail, that scandal involved the illicit transfer of American military technology to China and the illicit transfer of Chinese weapons, whose sale in the U.S. was banned during this time into the United States. Mark Middleton, a White House aide, and Jeffrey Epstein are some of the names apparently involved with those activities. Chinagate appears to have been a joint venture between factions of the CIA and Israeli intelligence and has never been properly investigated by federal authorities. It seems that Prince, who was and may still be a CIA asset, and Lessem have engaged in similar activities via FRG, FSG. For example, TRT World reported that Lessem is speculated to have transferred Carbine's technology to China via her role at FRG and her connection to Prince. China launched an app that was nearly analogous to Carbine, but more explicitly focused on surveillance. At the same time that Carbine launched its first 911 call system in the United States. In addition, TRT World notes the company Dark Matter, a UAE surveillance and intelligence group that employs former U.S. intelligence operatives, attracted the attention of Chinese officials at a Smart Cities conference in 2015. Again, they're all implementing the same agenda. Dark Matter, which was launched to modernize Emirati intelligence and military operations, signed a global strategic memorandum of understanding with Huawei, the Chinese tech giant. The middleman in the sale was none other than Erik Prince. Lessem and another Prince associate, Dorian Barak, also have business ties to UAE via their prominent roles at the UAE Israel Business Council. Now, a real quick side note, I have to say it. There is nothing more powerful than Central Intelligence and the Mossad. Like, that is what all of the leaders work off of, is the intelligence of the CIA and the Mossad, which is Israeli CIA. And they work together. See, obviously, Israel and America are very connected in too many ways. But one of them is our intelligence agencies. And so when you say that a group of people that a lot of people belittle because of their lack of economic development, but you say that same group of people that can't build things are going to somehow hide their plans from the Mossad or from American CIA, I just don't believe it. Just like 9/11. I don't believe that somebody in a cave in Afghanistan could get through American defenses organically. And I'll just leave it at that. Dark Matter, which was launched to modernize this intelligence, the Emirati, I already read that, sorry, keep going. Comframe, secretive company or intelligence front. So Prince's and Lessem's, or Lessem, joint activities after Lessem left FRG suggest that this pattern of behavior has not only continued, but deepened. According to Lessem's website, a year and a half after she started working for Prince, she and Prince joined forces to found Comframe, a company that takes the best of Israeli defense technology providers and helps them penetrate the American market by bridging prevalent gaps. Lessem also says Comframe was assisted by her premier integrator and business development platform for deploying advanced military, special operations, public safety, and HLS solutions in the United States, and a wide network of partnerships, both government and civilian. In discussing Comframe elsewhere, she writes that the company she co-founded with Prince is led and staffed by special operations and defense procurement veterans with billions of dollars of successful sales to USG and foreign government to their names. She says that Comframe has a track record of success implementing complex procurement and integrations programs from the intelligence gathering and analysis to contracting. Program sales and personnel deployment is exceptional. What Lessem says of the company clashes with Comframe's threadbare public presence. For instance, its website, which is notably short on content, lists the following companies as partners: Tomcar, Bluebird Aerosystems, General Robotics, SafeStrike Ops Corps, now part of Gentex Corps, and Annex. On its partners page, Comframe says that this is a small sampling of our current partners we have chosen to work with. Most of these companies were created by Israeli military intelligence veterans. Aside from the partners page, there is little other information available on the Comframe site. It describes its mission as to source cutting-edge innovative technologies that safely and securely solve articulated U.S. government problems, and touts its get-it-done commitment and how its employees wake up every morning wanting to find solutions that keep the U.S. government safe and more lethal. It lists the company's president as Chris Burgess. Burgess, a former Navy SEAL who trained with Erik Prince, does not list Comframe on his LinkedIn or in any other site discussing his work history. He is currently the CEO of military contractor Regulus Global. He previously ran a mercenary firm he founded, Greystone Ltd., that was previously affiliated with Prince's Blackwater and was originally intended to be Blackwater's sister company. Both Blackwater, now Academy, and Greystone have been accused of sending mercenaries to fight in the current conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Both companies deny this. The accusations came after Prince had planned to create a private army in Ukraine, something he has attempted to do and sometimes succeeded in various conflict zones such as Afghanistan. Prince also has attempted to offer lethal services to Russia's Wagner Group. Aside from Burgess's apparent unwillingness to associate himself publicly with Comframe, there is also the fact that the only employee publicly associated with Comframe at all is Lytel Lessem. Indeed, even Erik Prince has declined to publicly affiliate himself with the company. Another oddity is the fact that Comframe's website has an industry news page that contains several blog posts with titles discussing oil markets and geopolitics. However, the content of the posts themselves are all filler generated by WordPress. Was Comframe also intended to work in commodities markets? The odd and sparse nature of the website seems to clash with Lessem's characterization of the company. So, what is Comframe exactly, and what is it intended to do? Why are the only people associated with the company two professional mercenaries, one of whom is a known CIA asset and an Israeli spy? 2020 article published in the Jerusalem Post seems to highlight Comframe's mysterious inner workings and likely purpose. That article notes that Comframe acted as a middleman in forging an agreement to create an assembly line in El Paso, Texas, in order for the Israeli company Tomcar to offer its latest models to the U.S. Armed Forces. The agreement was made between Tomcar and Prince Manufacturing, a major contract manufacturing company that works with Ford, General Motors, and Tesla, among others. Prince Manufacturing was notably founded and run for many years by Edgar Prince, Erik Prince's father. Notably, Tomcar, its founder, Yoram Zarki, and his son works for Tomcar, Ram Zarki, appear in the Panama Papers, as does the former holding company that owned Tomcar from 2004 to 2011. The article notes that Comframe is focused on recognizing needs in the U.S. defense industry and matching them to possible solutions, usually involving Israeli companies. However, the article notes, to meet the demands of American security needs, one must have an American entity. Lessum is then quoted as saying, Ram had been living in Phoenix for 15 years, but he can't do that, sell to the American military, because he is not a U.S. citizen. We can. In other words, per Lessum, Conframes utilizes Prince and presumably Burgess to sell Israeli defense technology and products to the American military that would otherwise not happen due to national security concerns around buying foreign-made products for sensitive defense and military operations. So they have these rules, but they know how to break them because they made them. And here we are still trying to play by their rules and play in their game. Lessum goes on to state Conframe sells to the U.S. Special Forces and other branches of the service, U.S. military, noting that Conframe is specifically targeting special ops. She also suggests that aside from the U.S. military, another intended market for the company is NATO. She told Jerusalem Post that the U.S. controls 70% of NATO's defense industry. Conframe is a very suspect company. It is highly secretive, targets sensitive American military agencies with foreign technology, and its known employees are apparent spooks and intelligence-linked mercenaries. Not only that, but the history of the Israeli espionage in the United States, from Jonathan Pollard and Promise to Converse and beyond, shows a concerted effort to target the American military and security agencies, often with bugged or backdoored technology. In addition to the above, Prince has also recently engaged in efforts to market a very suspect smartphone to MAGA Republicans as being unhackable and unsurveillable. That phone was designed in Israel, and the company that produces it is called Unplugged. According to reports, Unplugged's day-to-day technology operations are run by Aaron Karpin, a former employee of Communitake, the Israeli startup that gave rise to the now infamous hacker-for-hire firm NSO Group. Karpin, like Lessum, is also a veteran of the Unit 2800. Notably, Dark Matter, the UAE private intelligence company that was mentioned earlier due to its association with Prince, once marketed an ultra-secure phone called Kadam, only to be later outed for hacking dissidents and journalists. And this is why I don't trust the Truth Social stuff, because to me it seems like they're trying to just gather all the people that may be dissidents. In addition, Prince debuted Unplugged's phone on Steve Bannon's War Room program, which, by the way, Steve Bannon and Erik Prince are connected monetarily as well. Both Prince and Bannon have controversial relationships with exiled Chinese billionaire Go Wengu, also known as Miles Gu. That Prince would help market this phone specifically to MAGA Republicans is disturbing, given that his associate Lessum and other Israeli intelligence veterans and operatives have played a major role in developing the infrastructure for the U.S. war on domestic terror, which is mainly targeted at the political right and has already utilized mass surveillance through smartphones and other technologies to justify arrests, including pre-crime arrests. Given the content of this investigation, Prince's ties to foreign governments and intelligence agencies should be heavily scrutinized, especially Conframe, whose secret activities may be drastically undermining American national security. That was long. I appreciate you guys hanging out for that. It was very important information, though. I didn't know that there was even a phone targeting MAGA Republicans. And if you did get that phone, what do you think of that information? And do you know anybody that got it? Let me know. If you have any info, I always like to hear it. Blackwater's naysayer in HPCSI, Crazy Pete Hoekstra. This came out all the way back in 2009. And this is not official, but this is something I thought I'd share with you anyway. You know how Crazy Pete Hoekstra has led the chorus of those who claim Leon Panetta should never have briefed Congress on the secret assassination squads, that the program in question was not a big deal? To his credit, he's doing it even now that Blackwater's rule has been revealed. I think there was a little more drama and intrigue than was warranted said Representative Pete Hoekstra of Michigan, the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee. Yeah, it all makes sense why Hoekstra would care about congressional oversight when the CIA shoots down missionaries, but not when CIA pays Blackwater mercenaries to assassinate its enemies. Hoekstra, of course, is very closely tied and financially reliant upon the Prince and DeVos families. What he says about investigations into Erik Prince's company should never be taken as credible. I will say this, though, as we get further and further along the design of the HPCSI investigation into all this, including the inclusion of that missionary plane to get Crazy Pete's buy-in looks smarter every day. Surprisingly, Crazy Pete hasn't received as much as I would have expected, from either Erik Prince or his mother in the way of campaign contributions. They gave far less each year than the maximum, and only 3 election cycles out of the 6. I suspect the Prince family donates indirectly to Hoekstra by making the maximum to the RNC, the local apparatus, Ottawa County, or PACs instead, neatly sweeping the money trail. I'll link here shortly the spreadsheet I'm putting together in a bit reflecting the top 100 donors for the election cycle. And then this person said, the Princes don't strike me as the type of people who would limit their donations to the kind that show up on Open Secrets, which is where this individual is getting their information. So take that as you will. Hoekstra admits close ties with Blackwater's Erik Prince. This was 2007. Holland Congressman Pete Hoekstra has close ties with Blackwater USA founder and Holland native Erik Prince, according to a recent Grand Rapids Press article. However, these connections are a bit deeper than what the press lets on. In a column printed in Sunday's Grand Rapids Press, editor Mike Lloyd mused on the role of private security firms in Iraq. The column, titled Debate on Private Security in Iraq Hits Home, is notable not so much for Lloyd's comments on Blackwater and his paper's coverage of it, but rather for his interview with Holland Representative Peter Hoekstra and Hoekstra's discussion about his connection to Blackwater founder and Holland native Erik Prince. At one point in Lloyd's column, Hoekstra says, "We're all connected in Holland, bingo." After responding to the questions about his connections with the Blackwater founder, Hoekstra told the press that his connection goes way back, explaining that he attended the same Central Avenue Christian Reformed Church as the Prince family, that Erik Prince is related to Hoekstra's best friend from high school, and that Prince is friends with Hoekstra's inter-district director, Bill Huizenga. Hoekstra says that he has talked to the Prince regularly, stating, "I've called him and he's called me. Erik has people on the ground all the time. I get a different perspective from him than I do from our own military." Not surprising, Hoekstra says nothing ill of Erik Prince. He criticized the recent hearing at which Prince testified about the role of Blackwater in Iraq, arguing that Prince was unfairly targeted. Hoekstra said that the hearings set up a situation where the media coverage made Erik the poster child for a war policy run amok. It was unfair. Hoekstra, who has been protected by Blackwater each of the 9 times he has visited Iraq, says that Blackwater is very good at providing security. He says that it is worth the money and that the United States is not using these private contractors because we want to. We are using them because we have to. He further says that Prince is professional and intense. Now, is it possible that the government made it so restrictive that it created this need, problem, reaction, solution for private mercenaries? And again, though, you have to question the whole reason we were over there to begin with. Beyond this, it's worth thinking about what is excluded from Lloyd's comments on Blackwater. Lloyd, the editor of West Michigan's largest and Grand Rapids only newspaper, essentially gives Hoekstra space to defend Blackwater. Hoekstra is never challenged by Lloyd, nor are any of his claims about Blackwater. Instead, his claims go unchecked, and Lloyd never asks the big questions. Why is it acceptable for the chair of the House Intelligence Committee to be getting intelligence information from, or why Hoekstra claims that Blackwater's mercenaries are needed in Iraq? Similarly, Lloyd never takes the time to disclose the fact that Prince, not just his family, is a significant donor to the Republican Party. In fact, Erik Prince himself gave $1,000 to Hoekstra's campaign in both 2004 and 2005, and $500 in 1999. Finally, it's important to remember that this essentially is essentially the second time that the press made room for Blackwater to either defend itself or be defended. Back in the spring of this year, the press ran a guest column for Erik Prince, giving Prince room to defend his company. Out of the Daily Beast. Exclusive, Erik Prince on Blackwater's secret CIA past. Last month, a 3-year-long federal prosecution, well, let me see this date, 2017. A 3-year-long federal prosecution of Blackwater collapsed. The government's 15 felony indictment on such charges as conspiring to hide purchases of automatic rifles and other weapons from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives could have led to years of jail time for Blackwater personnel. Ha! Like usual, nothing happens though. It's just, hey, pay a fine. What's $50 million when I make billions, baby? Billions with a B. In the end, however, the government got only misdemeanor guilty pleas by 2 former executives, each of whom were sentenced to 4 months of house arrest, 3 years probation, and a fine of $5,000. Wow. $5,000 when you make billions. Prosecutors dropped charges against 3 other executives named in the suit and abandoned the felony charges altogether. Just like Flint, Michigan with water. Just like every other thing. People, I'm sorry, but Trump said, I'm going to go after Hillary Clinton. If he would have actually went after Hillary Clinton, I might have voted for him in 2020. I might have voted. But he didn't. It was a lie. He didn't do anything. As soon as he got in, he dropped all that. It was all just a show for people like me to maybe vote for him because Hillary Clinton is a war criminal. I can't stand Hillary Clinton. I know I'm not alone in that anymore. It used to be back in the day that I was, I felt like I was one of the few, but now people know she is an evil witch. The most noteworthy thing about the largely failed prosecution wasn't the outcome. It was the tens of thousands of pages of documents, some declassified, that the litigation left in its wake. These documents illuminate Blackwater's defense strategy, and it's a fascinating one. To defeat the charges it was facing, Blackwater built a case not only that it worked with the CIA, which was already widely known, but that it was in many ways an extension of the agency itself. Founded in 1997 by Erik Prince, heir to an auto parts family fortune, Blackwater has proved especially useful to the CIA in the early 2000s. It was created specifically for that. You have to remember, they make their plans years in advance. You have to remember where the CIA was after 9/11, says retired Congressman Pete Hoekstra, who served as the Republican chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence from 2004 to 2006, and later as the ranking member of the committee. They were gutted in the 1990s. They were sending raw recruits into Afghanistan and other dangerous places. They were looking for skills and capabilities, and they had to go to outside contractors like Blackwater to make sure they could accomplish their mission. Still to this day, what was the real mission? But according to the documents Blackwater submitted in its defense, as well as an email exchange I had recently with the Prince, the contractor's relationship with the CIA was far deeper than most observers thought. Blackwater's work with the CIA began when we provided specialized instructions and facilities that the agency lacked, Prince told me recently in response to written questions. In the years that followed, the company became, yes, you know what, Hernandez, you're right, to do what was otherwise illegal. I'm sure that they were in charge of the torture, although I can't be sure of that with the whole waterboarding. But yeah, exactly. They're private business. So it wasn't the government that did anything illegal. It's like, again, another way they get around the rules that they make. That's only rules for you and I, because we're the only ones that are going to follow them. A prime example of the close relationship appears to have unfolded on March 19th, 2005. On that day, Prince and senior CIA officers joined King Abdullah of Jordan. Oh, Jordan. And his brothers on a trip to Blackwater headquarters in North Carolina, according to lawyers for the company and former Blackwater officials. You know what? I have to do, after this, I'm going to show a video, and I'm going to find something that just came out about Jordan, an airman, actually. I don't know if he blew the whistle, but he explained that there is a tower in Jordan because 3 of our soldiers or airmen, 3 of our military personnel died from a drone strike, from one-way drones, kamikaze drones. And come to find out, in Jordan, there's a tower that is actually using drones for surveillance and intelligence in Iraq and Afghanistan. So it's a spy tower in Jordan. And so, of course, we don't know anything on this side. And what happens over there, a lot of it is not reported. It's awful. We shouldn't be there. That's why I'm anti-war. It's a racket, and this is all proving it's a racket. On that day, Prince and Senior, the King of Jordan, after traveling by private jet from Washington to the compound, Abdallah, a former Jordanian Special Forces officer, and Prince, a former Navy SEAL, participated in a simulated ambush, drove vehicles on a high-speed racetrack, and raided one of the compound's shoot houses, a specially built facility used to train warriors in close quarters combat with live ammo, Prince recalls. At the end of the day, company executives presented the king with 2 gifts, a modified Bushmaster AR-15 rifle and a Remington shotgun, both engraved with the Blackwater logo. Gifts. They also presented 3 Blackwater engraved Glock pistols to Abdallah's brother. According to Prince, the CIA asked Blackwater to give the guns to Abdallah when people at the agency had forgotten to get gifts for him. Yeah, and one of my deployments, I was in Kuwait guarding the Prince's airbase. So that's what some of our military personnel are doing. Why are we guarding Prince's airbase over there? 3 years later, the ATF raided the Moyak compound. In itself, this wasn't unusual. The ATF has been conducting routine inspections of the place since 2005, when Blackwater informed the government that 2 of its employees had stolen guns and sold them on the black market. Typically, agents would show up in street clothes, recalled Prince. They knew our people and our processes. But the 2008 visit, according to Prince, was different. ATF agents had guns drawn and wore tactical jackets festooned with the initials ATF. It was a cartoonish show of force, he said. During the raid, the ATF seized 17 Romanian AK-47s and 17 Bushmaster AR-13 rifles the Bureau claimed were purchased illegally through the Sheriff's Office in Camden County, North Carolina. It also alleged Blackwater illegally shortened the barrels of rifles and then exported them to other countries in violation of the gun laws, federal gun laws. Meanwhile, in the process of trying to account for Blackwater guns, the ATF discovered that the rifles and pistols presented in 2005 to King Abdallah and his brothers were registered to Blackwater employees. Prosecutors would subsequently allege that Gary Jackson, the former president of Blackwater, and one of the 2 people who would eventually plead guilty to the misdemeanor, had instructed employees to falsely claim on ATF forms that the guns were their own personal property and not the possession of Jordan royalty. In all of these instances, the purchase of the rifle through the Camden County Sheriff, the shipment of the guns to other countries, and the gifts to the king, Blackwater argued that it was acting on behalf of the U.S. government and the CIA. All of these arguments, obviously, were very much in Blackwater's legal interest. That said, it provided the court with classified emails, memoranda, contracts, and photos. It also obtained sealed depositions from top CIA executives from the Directorate of Operations, testifying that Blackwater provided training and weapons for the agency operations. Let's see. I'll keep going. One document submitted by the defense names Jose Rodriguez, the former CIA chief of Directorate of Operations, and Buzzy Krongard, the agency's former executive director, as among those CIA officers who had direct knowledge of Blackwater's activities, in a section that is still partially redacted. How is information redacted, especially you FOIA the hell out of something or some entity, and then you have to pay for that, and then you get it back redacted? It's like, how is that okay? This document is the closest Blackwater has come to acknowledging that Prince himself was a CIA asset, something first reported in 2010 by Vanity Fair. One of the names on this list of CIA officers with knowledge of Blackwater's work in the document is Erik P., with the remaining letters whited out. This document made Blackwater's defense clear. The CIA routinely used Blackwater in missions throughout the world. It said, these efforts were made under written and unwritten contracts and through informal requests. On many occasions, the CIA paid Blackwater nothing for its assistance. Blackwater also employed CIA officers and agents and provided cover to CIA agents and officers operating in covert and clandestine assignments. In many respects, Blackwater, or at least portions of Blackwater, was an extension of the CIA. When I asked Prince why Blackwater would often work for free, he responded, I agree to provide some services because in the wake of 9/11, I felt it my patriotic duty. I knew that I had the tools and resources to help my country. Patriotic duty. Moreover, according to still-sealed testimony described to the Daily Beast, the agency had its own security telephone line and a facility for handling classified information within Blackwater's North Carolina headquarters. CIA officers trained there and used an area fully shielded from view inside the rest of Blackwater compound by 20-foot berms to coordinate operations. In 2010, Prince sold Blackwater, which is now known as Academy, for an estimated $200 million. Prince retains control of numerous companies that were part of Blackwater before he sold it, but he told me that he had ceased providing any service to the U.S. government. Right. Walker would not discuss Blackwater's relationship with the CIA, but he did say the defense of the company was acting for the government did not excuse any violations of federal law. Our evidence showed that there was a mentality at the company that they considered themselves above the law, Walker said. That is a slippery slope. There came a time when there had to be accountability at Blackwater. David Boies, the lawyer who represented Al Gore in Bush versus Gore, took up Gary Jackson's case last fall. Oh my gosh, it's like you're getting a lawyer that can't be trusted. It's like the CIA investigated itself and found that it's not guilty. That's what it reminds me of. Boies told me that he did so because he saw the prosecution as an abuse of power. These people were functioning really as an arm of the CIA at a time when the CIA's resources were strained, he said. I think that Erik Prince and Mr. Jackson and other people at Blackwater thought they were being patriots. Reflecting on the prosecution and the scrutiny of the company he founded, Prince said the charges against Blackwater executives left him perplexed and angry. Blackwater carried out countless life-threatening missions for the CIA, he said, and in return, the government chose to prosecute my people for doing exactly what was asked of them. Crazy connections. Crazy connections. Okay, so I found this. It is 34 minutes long. We're not going to watch the entire thing, but I'm going to show this and figure out what I was trying to find earlier. So let's see.
Washington Journal continues.
Welcome back. Former Michigan Congressman and former Intelligence Committee Chair Peter Hoekstra joins us this morning to discuss the recent WikiLeaks release of CIA hacking documents. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
And as you well know, WikiLeaks this week released what it says are roughly 8,000 web pages and other documents revealing the CIA's hacking methods. On the face of it, how damaging is this breach?
I think it's very, very damaging. This is a situation where we now have an intelligence community that really is in crisis. Obviously, it has its own internal problems where you see this kind of massive release or this massive breach of its systems. The other thing that you have is you have an intelligence community now that has a crisis of confidence with the American people. The American people are wondering, how does this happen? This is now the third time. We had the breach from Bradley Manning. We had the breach from Edward Snowden. And now we've got this breach of the CIA. So you've got an intelligence community that is kind of in free fall with the American people wondering, what's going on? How come our spies can't keep secrets?
You see, I wanted to just share that just first a minute and 27 seconds. He is not asking why there are these secrets of her government spying on us. He's asking why are the secrets being released? Like, he is 100% CIA intelligence. Like, he is not for the people. He does not want you to know what the government is doing. He wants you to quietly be enslaved.
We have a spy community that cannot keep secrets. That's not good.
So what more should be done, do you think, to safeguard?
I think Edward Snowden was a hero, and even Chelsea Manning, which that whole situation is weird with Chelsea Manning because, yeah, give me a second. I'll try to find something.
The CIA secrets?
Well, there's a couple of things that need to happen. Number one, there's a question as to why the CIA even had this type of cyber capability. It used to be that all of this cyber kind of capability, that was the responsibility of the NSA. I guess there's now 4 different intelligence communities or 4 different parts of the intelligence community that are kind of duplicating their own capabilities. So you've got 4 areas that you have to protect. And the question is, why are we creating these little fiefdoms all over the intelligence community? Why don't we have it in one central place?
He loves centralized power.
So that we've only got one real area that we've got to protect where we do this kind of work. There's also been reports that the systems within the CIA, old computer systems, old security mechanisms. Clearly, if you want to be the premier cyber warrior
We need more money
in the world today, you need to make the proper investments. So I think Congress is going to have to take a look at this and determine whether the proper investments have been made to make sure that our systems are up to date. And the third thing you need to do is, obviously, you got to go back and take a look at the procedures that you have in place. Is the culture right? Are the procedures right? Do we have the best tools in place to protect our data?
Why?
Whose data? Whose data? When you say our data, whose data is that? Is that my data that you have stolen through the NSA? Like, why are these people privy to all the data and we're not? Like, who are you? Who voted you to have all the data? Now, Grimes was Elon Musk's girlfriend. 3 children they have together. Grimes was dating Chelsea Manning. Now, Chelsea Manning is a transgender. I think a female to male transitioner. I should verify. It's just very strange. I found the connection very strange 2 years ago when I wrote one article on my website that I have not done anything with. And in that, you can see that I put there that Chelsea Manning, a whistleblower, also has ties to Grimes, which is tied to Elon Musk. And it's just strange.
Why can't or why hasn't the government so far been able to shut down WikiLeaks?
Well, I mean, WikiLeaks clearly is very good at what they do. The second question is, has that been a priority, or has an administration, has an executive branch agency been given the authority or the directive to shut down WikiLeaks? And the third question is, if you shut down WikiLeaks, they still have the data. Do they take that data and just transfer it to someone else? So the real question is, what's the value of shutting down WikiLeaks, at least their access to the public, if by shutting them down, they just take this information and move it someplace else and it still gets to the American people?
Former Congressman Pete Hoekstra is our guest this morning.
Yeah, so he has, and I have problems with him having problems with that. I, of course, don't trust the CIA. They're more powerful than our government. If the president doesn't have all the information, the CIA does. So I think I'm going to share some other information with you guys. I'm just double checking really quick and making sure that I don't have any more on Pete Hoekstra. Oh, something I wanted to share. Yes. Okay, here we go. So the NSA is currently at Ferris State University. What do I mean by that? They have right here. So Ferris State University will continue playing a key role in developing talent and tools for possible national security challenges as it enters into an education partnership agreement with the National Security Agency. Ferris has signed a 5-year partnership with a federal agency focusing on boosting science, technology, engineering, and math education for students, leveraging the computer software expertise, special equipment, information. So hackers, are they trying to get hackers? The partnership includes Ferris's Information Security and Intelligence Program and will provide educational opportunities for students to meet and grow demand for skills in STEM fields. This was 2023, so just last year, the NSA and Ferris State University created this partnership. Ferris's ISI program is accredited by the NSA as a Center of Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense in all information and assurance subject areas. It is designated by the Department of Defense Cyber Command and the Air Force Office of Special Investigations as the National Center for Digital Forensic Academic Excellence, and by the NSA as the U.S. Department of Homeland Security as a Center for Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense. The Center for Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense designation indicates that the ISI program is helping reduce threats to our national infrastructure by promoting higher education and research in cyber defense and providing the nation with a pipeline of qualified cybersecurity professionals. In 2017, the ISI undergraduate program earned ABET engineering accreditation for cybersecurity. One of the first 7 universities in the nation to achieve this distinction. ABET accreditation is evidence that the program has met standards essential to produce graduates ready to enter the critical fields of STEM education. Now, the NSA is a U.S. government agency responsible for protecting the nation's national security systems, collecting signals intelligence, and providing foreign intelligence information to the government, military, and other agencies, such as the CIA and the FBI. The NSA was created in 1952, right after the United Nations was created, right after World War II. Now, the lack of transparency, this came out in 2021. This is about the president, Bill Pink, and how he was selected. A disconnect between faculty and administration persists as the committee searching for President Eisler's, and hopefully that's how you say it, successor is bound to a non-disclosure agreement. By signing the NDA, Search Advisory Committee members accepted the position offered by Chair Amna Siebold of the Board of Trustees. Everything covered by the document is to be viewed as a matter of both personal responsibility and legal obligation. The NDA states that all members of the SAC will protect the identity information regarding all prospects and candidates. Any general or specific opinions declared by SAC members are also strictly confidential. Members of the SAC are expected to withhold information regarding all prospects and candidates that is not generally known to the public after the search is completed. Once the final candidate is selected, only information approved by the university may be released. Why? It's never been done before. Brandy Vanderhovel, UNISERV director of the Michigan Education Association, obtained a virtual copy of the NDA through a Freedom of Information request dated September 9th, 2021. This request was fulfilled 20 days later. Ferris Faculty Association President Charles Bacon discussed the contents of the NDA at a board meeting last Tuesday. No one has ever seen an NDA so restrictive in their experience. Seems like Amna doesn't want anyone looking under the hood, Bacon said. Because SAC members are not permitted to speak to any publication outlet about the search, media requests are to be sent to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees has yet to commit to the torch regarding the story. Just saw that there's some people in the chat over on Rumble. Thank you, Charlotte, for joining me. That app is a tracker good neighbor program spies. The RNC was or is doing real estate app. I walked off the Republican Party because of this clown. Yeah, Pete Hoekstra is just one of many. And I didn't realize he was in my backyard. And I should have known, but now I do. And yeah. And unless, yeah, you must be talking about Pete Hoekstra. Because SAC members are not permitted to speak to any publication outlet about the search, media requests are being sent to the Board of Trustees. Okay. Karen Hoosman, assistant to the president and secretary to the Board of Trustees, directed communication to Sandy Golston. Golston, who works as co-chair of FAIR's social media team, stated the NDAs are commonplace in the hiring process. This is what we hear. It seems like a robot response to me. I'm sorry, no offense to this person, but, you know, NDAs are commonplace. It's like, that's a problem. It's a problem that everything is being hidden from us. This should be public information. Why is it hidden? When searching for a senior level executive, such as university president, it is common to have a non-disclosure agreement to attract the best people and the largest pool of candidates, Golston said. Still, FFA member Holly Price is suspicious of the NDA and the lateness of the search. I would advise my colleagues and students not to sign the NDA until it can be reviewed by an attorney. The FFA has an attorney who we intend to seek input from on this matter, Price said. The intended purpose of the NDA and importance of confidentiality are described in the document. I understand maintaining the strict confidentiality of this information is necessary to attract high-quality prospects and candidates, to avoid putting their current positions in jeopardy, and to protect the integrity of such individuals as well as that of Ferris State University, it reads. Price believes that if the SAC's priority is to protect candidates from losing their current jobs, the restrictions should be limited to applicant privacy. Bacon first referred to the SAC's lack of transparency in response to a resolution dated May 7, 2021. This document described the SAC's formation and delegation. According to the resolution, the Board of Trustees appointed itself to serve as a presidential search committee following Eisler's retirement announcement in March. The executive committee of the PSC was tasked with arranging a complete process for conducting the search, including the composition of the SAC. The Search Advisory Committee is comprised of 25 members from campus communities representing many different constituencies, Golston said. They will assist in the review of applicants, help determine which applicants will be brought in for the interviews, and make hiring recommendations of the Board of Trustees. So all you have to do is have 25 people that you've either bitten, bribed, or bullied, blackmailed. And you can do what you will. I mean, it's a lot easier if it's just 25 people that we have to watch and make sure that they, do what we want rather than the community. The PSC may introduce any additional contracts to the SAC that they deem necessary in the search, such as confidentiality agreements. According to the letter from the FFA, Bacon was initially displeased with an imbalance in the SAC's makeup. While the Academic Senate was granted 3 spots on the committee, 1 out of the 5 FFA members recommended by Bacon would be included. Schabold acknowledged this disparity and expressed her willingness to resolve it. I explained that the FFA leadership is the only faculty representation elected at large and the only association capable of representing the collective bargaining agreement, Bacon said. Golston stated that the presidential search is set to finish prior to his retirement, Eisler's retirement date of June 30th, 2022. When asked to comment on his potential future as a tenured member of Ferris's music department, Golston disclosed that the details of the president's retirement have not been finalized. Now I have one more. The secret search for the Ferris State University's new president. Ferris State University's appointment of Grand Rapids Community College President Bill Pink as its next president was the result of strict and stringent search for candidates. Typical reason for not disclosing the candidates for the position is to prevent their jobs from being jeopardized. If the search was open, the primary concern for the SAC is that the news would discourage possible candidates from applying for fear of damaging their current positions. Still, Ferris State's closed search took its privacy to a new level, and what is being called extremely restrictive agreement. The college required candidates and those involved to sign an NDA, or non-disclosure agreement, which would legally bar individuals from disclosing any information regarding the hunt for the new president. Many applied only when they knew the search was going to be completely confidential. Of course, Seibold said, more and more universities are using an entirely confidential process, which expands the applicant pool. How would colleagues feel if they found out their sitting president applied to a different university? You know, I'm sorry, that's not a good excuse for me. It's not good enough. FSU Faculty Association President Charles Bacon had previously stated that he's unhappy. I would rather move on. The search is done, and it's time to work with President Bill Pink when he comes in, and I don't want to focus on the process. I prefer to have an open search. The search firm, as well as the board members, felt that it was better to protect the candidates than having an open search, and that's the way that it went. I think it's absolutely inappropriate for a state institution, Connor said. I think it is important for the public as a whole to have input on who their president can be. Private schools can do whatever they want, but when you are talking about a state institution, then I do believe that the state shareholders, the community shareholders, should be aware of who the finalists are. Exactly. The prevalence of closed searches has been on the rise in recent years, especially for top university positions. And that is because the university positions is basically government now. State university, it's a public school, taxpayer funded, but we know the taxpayers don't get a say. Central planners say what our taxpayer dollars are used for. In February of this year, University of Michigan began the search in the 15th for its 15th president. And with the departure of Pink, a vacancy is open at GRCC as well. Connor is hopeful that closed searches will not become the norm, especially as it concerns public institutions. When Pink's departure from GRCC came as shock to many, Connor is not surprised or offended by his departure. I knew the search was happening at Ferris. When I say this, it is not a criticism of President Pink. I wouldn't expect him not to apply. My criticism is for Ferris and the process. Was I surprised? Yes and no. The presidents turn over every 6 to 8 years. We have kind of seen that with our last 3 presidents. The fact that he is leaving, no, I'm not surprised. I always expected he would be looking to advance his career. I wasn't aware, and nobody was, because of the secret process. When I heard, I was like, wow, okay. But big picture, no. The man who Pink will replace at FSU, David Eisler, had been in his post for 18 years. He stands to make a substantial sum on his way out the door. Yeah, he's a sellout. So, you get the picture. The lack of transparency is suspicious, but perhaps it has to do with the intelligence agency and community, or it's just that state universities are political now, and maybe they have been for a long time, but we are seeing it out in the open. I think I can take this off, actually. So, I am sorry, by the way, that I started late, so I'm going to keep going a little bit longer since I started late. Whitmer floats huge hike in landfill fees to curb out-of-state trash and boost green funds. So that is all I have for now on Peter Hoekstra. And so you can be Team Hoekstra all you want, and that is your prerogative, okay? I, unfortunately, do not like what's going on with the GOP. And again, I'm not even Republican, but I have a lot of friends that are grassroots. True grassroots. We're just normal people that in the last couple of years have seen that things aren't as they should be and are trying to hold our politicians accountable. It's very difficult when you are fighting something like Goshen, but how are you going to fight something like Goshen with money as your primary? We need people, because Goshen has money. Obviously, it has our money, and it has CCP money. And so if you're trying to go up against these people in the court of law, and they have the money, and they have, majority of the time, bribed or bullied or bitten, the court system people as well. It's regulatory capture just as anything else. So it's hard to trust any of that. It's like we need to find something else. Those old ways aren't working because you're playing the game, their game, with their rules. How are you supposed to win? The cost of dumping trash, the cost of dumping a ton of trash in a Michigan landfill would increase by more than 13-fold under Governor Gretchen Whitmer's plan that she floated Wednesday in her new $80 billion state budget proposal. $1 billion she's spending of our money because the government doesn't have money, doesn't make money. $80 billion could easily fix all of the dams that would actually help people that are living around the dams and all the people that come to this area for recreational purposes, to fish, to use their boats, their cigarette boats on Hardy Dam Pond. Like, how about we use the money to help people in that way? The increase in Michigan's tipping fee, Whitmer argued Wednesday, will bring the state in line with the Midwest average and generate additional funding for legacy contamination and cleanup sites. So that cost is going to roll over onto us. Be prepared for your trash bill to be much higher. I mean, last couple of years, they've charged me like $30 for gas, for green fees and all this. So the more regulations and the more fees on these companies, the more we pay. That's just how it works. The fee under Whitmer's proposed budget would increase from 36 cents a ton to 36 cents a ton of solid waste to $5 a ton, generating an additional $80 million annually to be used for recycling programs and cleaning up to contaminated sites. So we are going to pay for companies' contaminations. Let's say Ford or GM or Stellantis contaminates a site. Why are we paying for it? Same reason why we're paying for Goshen's property, and why we're paying $700 million for Goshen to be here and we don't even want him here. It's the same reason. State officials also hope a 1,289% increase in the fee will deter out-of-state dumping at Michigan's lowball landfills and extend the lifespan of existing landfills in the state. And by the way, this came out February 8th, 2024, so this is fresh news. Michigan is currently grappling with a multifaceted environmental challenge characterized by the deposition of significant volumes of out-of-state waste, escalating greenhouse gas emissions, and straining the limited lifespans of existing landfill. Whitmer's budget office wrote. The Michigan Waste and Recycling Association said it was reviewing the proposal and looked forward to working with the legislator and Whitmer's plan. The proposal is initially concerning due to the impact it would have on all Michiganders, this group said in a statement Thursday. An increase of this magnitude would add costs to virtually every household and business in the state, as well as local governments, hospitals, public safety organizations, and school districts. The Michigan League for Conservation Voters celebrated Whitmer's proposal, higher tipping fees for waste haulers Wednesday, highlighting it among several items it supported in the proposed spending plan. Jessica says, hey, keep up the good work. Truth matters. Praying for all the environment globally. Me too. Me too. We can definitely clean up our act, but the green industry is not cleaning up the act. It's just transferring problems. But yeah, thanks for being here, Jessica. I very much appreciate all of you guys hanging out. But the proposal was criticized by State Rep Ann Bolin from Brighton, who called it an exponential increase that will ultimately be placed on the backs of Michigan residents whose trash makes up the majority of what goes into Michigan landfills. The money, it looks like, is going to go to a lot of the green programs. Bolin said, I think Michigan families still continue to suffer. We're offering a lot of these incentive programs and almost social engineering, trying to get people to be sustainable. But what I see resulting is a shrinking middle class. Exactly. Social engineering, shrinking middle class. And I had another article that was on Biden, and I'm going to try to find it really quick. It was a zero hedge. Right here. Biden admin classifies Martha's Vineyard and other elite enclaves low income to push EV charger subsidies. Some of the wealthiest liberal enclaves in the country are being classified by the Biden admin as low income in order to qualify for an EV charger subsidy program contained within the Inflation Reduction Act. There is a war out, guys, and the rich are getting richer, and the middle class and the poor we're losing. When it comes to money, we've lost the greatest wealth transfer in history. Once again, I'll say it, in the last 4 years. And it's things like this that are screwing us over. So you cannot trust them when they say, this is for the good of you. No, this is so that they can nickel and dime you into 15-minute cities. So you will not be able to afford anything. You will have to be on universal basic income. You will have to rely on the government because of how much government regulations are put in place. It's mind-boggling. Now I got to try to find where I was. I got too many articles. Here we are. Efforts to increase the state tipping fee date back to the administration of Republican Governor Rick Schneider, who, in his final executive budget recommendation in 2018, proposed raising the tipping fee from 36 cents per ton to $4.44 per ton. That proposed fee increase was rejected by the Republican-led legislature both before the November 2018 election and during the lame duck session later that year during Schneider's final months in office. At the time, fees in neighboring states averaged $5.32 per ton, with Wisconsin at $13 and Indiana at 60 cents. About 25% of the waste deposited in Michigan's landfill is believed to be from other states or Canada, which take advantage of Michigan's low rates. Kind of like what they did with East Palestine, Ohio, when they sent a bunch of contaminated stuff to Detroit, and allegedly no one was even asked. Under the plan proposed Wednesday by Whitmer, roughly 75% of the increased tipping fee will go toward environmental remediation and brownfield redevelopment, 13% to recycling initiatives, and 7% toward landfill operations. Once again, our money that should go to fire and our public parks is being funneled to brownfield redevelopment. That's why our parks and our fire have no money and are dilapidated. So they need more money for brownfields. They already funnel our money over there. The division of the funds is similar to what Schneider proposed in 2018. This initiative will concurrently make the state a healthier and more attractive place to live, while ensuring that the state meets its climate goals and stops Michigan from continuing to be the destination for other states' waste. The state budget office wrote in the Wednesday briefing on the issue. So there's one thing they're trying to do. NFL draft would have a lasting impact on Detroit. Here is how the city is preparing. They're definitely going full on, of course, with either the 20-minute neighborhood or the 15-minute city. And I'm going to actually get more into Detroit tomorrow. So I will cover this article, and I have a couple videos to share. And I'll do that tomorrow. So here we are. Michigan has new gun laws on the way. Gun safety advocates want to see more. This just came out. What is that? This came out today. Yesterday. Today. Okay. When Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed into law gun safety measures following the shooting at Michigan State University last year, you see? Problem, reaction, solution. How do you know that that individual that did that terrible crime, because it was terrible, of course, how do you know that they weren't got by the CIA or somebody else, by our government, somebody? Or even, I've covered Medusa, which is a frequency weapon that uses 5G, because microwave frequency is in the 5G range. And that can make you hear things in your head, make you hear voices in your head. How do we know? And it could be meds, right? I mean, most of these people are on antidepressants. So does the antidepressant make you hear voices in your head? It's been reported as such. Is there some kind of link between the two? It makes you more susceptible. I'm getting into speculation right now, but the fact is that these mass shootings are every time used as an excuse, as a justification for locking down this, or heightened security here for politicians, or get rid of the guns for us normal people, law-abiding citizens. That, again, I lived out in the country my entire life. When seconds count, police are 15 minutes away. So I need to be self-reliant, self-sustaining, and the government needs to trust me to do so. And this whole, I am 100% to a absolutist. I don't think there should be any rules. If the government can have it, why can't law-abiding citizens? But we're not going to get into that. We're going to move forward on what our central planners have in store for us if they get their way. Many gun safety advocates applaud the passage of proposals that previously stalled under Republican leadership, but those celebrations occurred against the backdrop of urgent calls for more. Before the MSU shooting, Whitmer called on lawmakers to send legislation her way to enact background checks for all gun purchases, firearm storage requirements to keep guns out of the hand of children, and a red flag law allowing courts to order the temporary removal of guns from those who pose an imminent risk to themselves or others. Who defines that? Once again, this can be abused. All of these rules can be abused, and that's why they put them there. If I piss my neighbor off for something I said, then my neighbor can say I'm crazy, and then they can come take whatever, my guns. Who are they? It's just a system that can be abused. And will be. 2 months after the MSU shooting, Whitmer signed into law the universal background checks and safe storage requirements. And about a month after that, she approved legislation to temporarily take away guns from those at risk of endangering themselves or others, marking the culmination of her for the trio of gun safety measures. Those new laws take effect this week. Morris, a 68-year-old retired police officer from Detroit, was among the safety advocates who stood behind Whitmer and lawmakers as the red flag gun laws bill signing ceremony last year, holding a sign that said, "Ban assault weapons now." Define assault weapons. This is always the thing. Define hate speech. Who is to do that? Because, define assault weapons. She welcomed the new gun safety laws while expressing hope for additional action. This is just the beginning, she told. She told the Free Press at the time. After the event, Whitmer expressed openness to other efforts to curb gun violence. Are you going to go after Big Pharma and all the pills that they administer? You going to go after mental health and actually try to solve mental health issues? Although the government can't be trusted to do anything. We need to fix ourselves, to heal ourselves, to save ourselves. That's the bottom line. Because these people, they want to enslave us. After the event, Whitmer expressed openness to other efforts to curb gun violence. "I don't think the conversation's over," she said. This year, Whitmer's office pointed to dedicated funding for local law enforcement in the governor's proposal for the next state budget. When asked about the specific gun safety measures Whitmer wants to see on her desk, "We've gotten Michigan on the right side of history to protect people from gun violence, but there's more work to do to make sure Michiganders feel safe in their communities," wrote Whitmer spokesperson Bobby Letty in an email. Gun safety advocates hope lawmakers who heralded the legislation passed last year will remain focused on ways to curb gun violence, and Democratic lawmakers pushing for additional action on gun safety say they plan to home in on a few legislative priorities this year. No surprise. So look out for false flags to try to do the problem reaction solution, the Hegelian method to take our guns. Because the United Nations does not want to fight us with their peacekeepers. They'd rather just take over nice and quiet. And it's much easier to do that if we don't have guns. It's unclear which measures Whitmer and Democratic legislative leaders want to see passed. This is a crisis that must be tackled from all angles, and we will continue to work with police, medical professionals, teachers, mental health experts, parents, and anyone committed to making our state a safer place, said Senate Majority Leader Winnie Brinks from Grand Rapids in a statement to the Free Press. Amber McCann, spokesperson for House Speaker Joe Tate of Detroit, forecast representatives will continue to introduce and champion additional measures to keep our residents and communities safe. Once again, freedom or safety. I choose freedom every time. Mika Rector-Brooks, press associate for the youth-led gun safety group March for Our Lives, characterized the new laws in Michigan as an incomplete victory. It was truly the bare minimum. And what I've seen lawmakers do in the past, and what we really want to avoid, is checking a box and moving on, they said. Not just in Michigan, but all over the country. Lawmakers take action after tragedies. So if you know that they take action after tragedies, don't you have incentive to create tragedies? Logically? If you are an evil, power-hungry POS? But they shouldn't wait for more people to die to pass laws to prevent gun violence, Rector-Brooks said. Advocates have their eyes on a long legislative wish list with many items supported by the group of lawmakers working on gun safety. Gun safety advocates see an opening for reducing gun violence in the state next budget. They want to see continued funding for community violence intervention programs, such as street outreach focused on those at risk for committing gun violence. And gun violence, and here's the main issue. Your neighbor agrees on the problem. And this is why I always say, love your neighbor, try to find common ground. I do believe in forgiveness, but I also believe in accountability. But your neighbor sees the same issues. It's that we have solutions that are different. And I've noticed that one side will not listen at all to the solutions of the other side. Every time I present a solution to certain people, I'm hateful. And I'm not a hateful person. It's just that my solutions, you were told, is hateful. But I don't want gun violence either. I love human beings. I love life. I'm a pro-human person. Okay? I'm a pro-life. I mean, life on earth, I am thankful for it. And so I don't want gun violence either, but this is not the solution. This is going to cause more violence. This is going to cause innocent people to be harmed by perpetrators because they don't have any way to defend themselves. And so we need to make sure that when we communicate with our neighbors and they disagree, that we give them the benefit of the doubt, that they are not an evil person, that they just are confused or they have a difference of opinion on the solutions. But the number one thing you need to do is listen to the other side and then form your judgment. Not just think you're on the other side, you're hateful. That's why you're on the other side, because that's not true. And so some of these people may very well have the best interests of people, their neighbor, in mind, but they're not listening to all the information. And others are malevolent. They really are. There are evil people in the world that choose evil. So when you see this type of thing, you have to ask, is this person ignorant or malevolent? And 9 times out of 10, your normal neighbor, your grassroots human being right next to you, not the career politician, is going to be ignorant, not malevolent. Now, of course, there are people that have ambition and they will choose to do whatever they can to rise up the ranks. But most people, most times, your neighbor is just another human being that has a different solution. And we need to be able to talk to each other in order to get over that ignorance, in order to not be ignorant. And so, again, last week, I got information. I'm switching back really quick. I got information from IDRA and I reported on it. Now, the other side, MESA, not official statement, no official statement, but people that are associated with MESA, they felt that the copyright was being abused, that they weren't copywriting. And so it's up to you what you want to think. I gave the information. And you can think what you will of Mesa and Idra. I know that I trust my neighbors want what's best and that they are trying with the information that they have to do what is best on both sides. Now, where you get your money does matter, and that will cause a split. But overall, I think that both sides, the people associated with both sides, do have what's best in mind, and that's getting rid of Goshen in this current situation. So I wanted to make myself clear on that. You, again, can think what you will about that situation, but I am going to keep talking about what I think is important, which is central planners and career politicians. And if they happen to be in the Mesa board, well, I'm going to keep talking about that. So I went on a little rant. I'm sorry. I wanted to get that out. I am going to continue giving information and as it's given to me. So if Mesa has information, and here's another thing I wanted to say. Idra on their website often has new information. That is why I go there. I go to the Mesa site. They don't have the information part down. That seems to be their fight is in the courts. And so they need donations for court fighting. So they don't have the information normally. So that's why I wanted to clear that up as well. I go to Idra. That is information abound over there. So I recommend always gathering as much information as possible. Now, back to this. On a party line vote last November, Democrats in the state house passed legislation banning the open carry of firearms at polling locations, early voting sites, clerks' offices, and ballot drop boxes, and a complete prohibition on the possession of firearms at absentee ballot counting centers. The same month, Whitmer signed legislation temporarily banning those with domestic violence convictions from possessing and purchasing firearms and ammunition in Michigan. So that's another way, I guess, they're going to keep moving the goalpost and keep making it, you have this on your record, you can't have a gun, So they're doing everything they can to legislatively take the guns first, carrot then stick, I guess, although you could say legislation is a stick. So I do not think that they will continue working on this, said Sean Holohan, state legislative director for the gun safety advocacy group Giffords. And as long as the Democrats have the majority, we're going to continue to see progress. Jessica says, totally think the school shootings are linked to a lot of inside government corruption and is a massive way to go Hunger Games on us. Absolutely. Yes. Hunger Games is one of those. That's what the mega regions thing reminds me of, is the Hunger Games. Like, they're going to corral us into these cities. You can't leave. If you try to go hunt for yourself, like Katniss, you get caught, you're going to be hung. And I'm trying to stop that from happening by just sharing information and spreading awareness. That's really what my channel is all about. But some gun regulations introduced by Democratic lawmakers have not received a hearing, including bills to raise the purchasing age from 18 to 21. I will never be okay with this, because you can go to war for your country at 18, but you can't drink at 18. You can't own a gun here at 18. You can go shoot a gun and kill people over in some other country, in someone else's country, but you can't defend yourself here in America. We can send weapons. We can leave weapons in Afghanistan. Tens of millions of dollars worth of weapons in Afghanistan. But we, the people in a free country, cannot have weapons. And we can't have them until 21. Give me a break. Established a 14-day waiting period between purchasing a firearm and obtaining it, and allowing local governments to ban open carry within their borders and create gun-free zones. State Senator Irwin from Ann Arbor, who introduced the bill enabling local governments to create gun-free zones, said that amid the many legislative priorities competing for lawmakers' attentions, he's hopeful they'll circle back to gun safety this year. There is still a fair amount of low-hanging fruit available. While those who introduced those bills hope to see action soon, and other gun-related bills may still emerge this legislative session. Rep. Felicia Brabeck from Pittsfield Township, who chairs the Michigan Firearms Safety and Violence Prevention Caucus, outlined legislation in the pipeline targeting ghost guns, homemade firearms that lack serial numbers, making them impossible to track, right? They want to track your guns, they want to track your kids, they want to track you. They want all that data, and they don't want you to know about it, and they're upset. Snowden is a traitor. Just never did I think that, never can I think that, but holy cow, when that came out, so many people were just like Peter Hoekstra. He's a traitor for telling the American people they're being spied on by the CIA and the NSA. She also discussed ensuring gun buyback programs result in the complete destruction of the firearms. A New York Times investigation found that Michigan State Police was the largest client of a company that destroys part of the firearms from law enforcement agencies while profiting off online sales of the remaining parts. Michigan State Police subsequently halted its contact with the company. Brabeck said the Firearm Safety Caucus she leads has also discussed Michigan's Stand Your Ground law that allows the use of deadly force any place someone has the legal right to be without imposing any duty to retreat, so long as the person uses such force is not committing a crime at the time and believes the use of force will prevent imminent death, bodily harm, or sexual assault. That we still have that one on the books is problematic. Wait a minute. So stand your ground law that allows use of deadly force any place someone has the legal right to be without imposing any duty to retreat. So on my private property, so long as the person using the force is not committing a crime at the time and believes the use of force will prevent imminent death, bodily harm, or sexual assault. So if someone comes onto my private property and is going to try to sexually assault me, I can legally shoot them, and that is problematic. Brabeck said eliminating, so I'm just supposed to allow them to do that? Because obviously I am smaller than most males, and even males my size are stronger because men are stronger than women on average. There are always outliers, but it is what it is. And so a gun is an equalizer. It doesn't matter if you're a 300-pound buff dude. If you're going to try to come on my property and assault me, I can protect myself because of a weapon. I can't otherwise. I'm supposed to have the government save me. Yeah, right. Brabeck said eliminating the liability protection for firearm manufacturers and dealers also tops the list of her caucus's legislative priorities. During a committee hearing last year, Democratic lawmakers amended the safe storage legislation to include a removal of the immunity protection, but that they later backtracked. Brabeck listed changing Michigan's liability law among her caucus's legislative priorities this year. The caucus Brabeck leads is open to all state house representatives from both parties, but its members only include Democrats, she said. Republicans, for their part, have backed legislation aimed at improving school safety and mental health support, but have largely opposed new gun restrictions. Short window to take action. Ooh, here we go. Democratic lawmakers who want to continue the momentum on gun safety action cited the loss of a voting majority in the state house as a temporary obstacle. Special elections in April will decide who will fill the vacant seats. But for now, the House is split 54-54. Penelope, holy cow, I don't know how to say your last name, in East Lansing, Democrat, whose bill to raise the minimum age for purchasing firearms has yet to receive a hearing, said she feels a sense of urgency. I think that things are moving slowly. They're moving slowly forward, which sometimes is the case with new laws. My personal preference would be to move forward quickly. But I don't really personally have the ability to move these things any faster than they are. She said, Additional legislative action on gun safety will depend on the outcome of the November election this year, which will determine whether Democrats keep control of the House in 2025. Democrats' universal background checks and red flag law bills passed on party line votes. Some Republicans in the House supported the firearm storage requirements. In the new regulations, if new gun regulations face united GOP opposition, Democrats could potentially have until the end of 2024 to pass them before Republicans flip control of the state house. It's a tight window. I think gun violence prevention is a winning political issue, said Tanya Shart, Senior Director of State and Federal Policy for the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence. The policies work, and we know that. State Rep Rachel Hood from Grand Rapids, who is currently working to move her legislation to establish a waiting period in Michigan, said voters are clamoring for lawmakers to do more to tackle gun violence. Right. Do more. More regulation is definitely going to help. It always does, right? That's what we need. Bigger government. More government, please. This is a public health crisis. Oh, everything is a public health crisis because they've figured out you could justify anything if you just say it's a public health crisis. You can justify shutting businesses down, even though they're private businesses and they shouldn't be touched by the government. Government should not be able to. They could lock you in your home because of public health crisis. The climate emergency is a public health crisis, y'all. And now gun violence is a public health crisis. We can justify anything. It's for your safety. This is a public health crisis, and I believe that many people in our community, including scores of people who are themselves responsible gun owners, believe that we can take more steps forward. No more steps forward for you. That's what I say. No way. All right. I'm going to talk about Detroit tomorrow. I have a few more things tomorrow to get into when it comes to 15-Minute City over in Holland. Got some information on that. And the last thing I'm going to show is this. What is too old? A state of mind or a state of criticism came out yesterday. If you don't know, Biden is not going to be charged for the potential crime, the alleged crime of having classified material where he shouldn't. And it's because he's too old in order to be held responsible for his actions. Now, this is a huge problem, and it makes me wonder what's coming from between now and the end of his presidency that he won't be charged for, won't be held accountable for in the court of law because he can't be, because he's too old and feeble. How is that possible? He is the commander-in-chief of the largest military, the largest black budget for the military in the world, and yet he can't be held accountable for his actions. How far back is that going to go? Is it going to go back to when he coerced people to get an experiment that is harmful and that they knew that was harmful, but now he can't be charged for it? Like, how far back is this going to go? Will he be held accountable for anything when it's found out just how awful everything that was done during his presidency is? Again, he's fall guy Biden. This is all by design from where I sit, everything I've read. This is the time where, unfortunately, America is going to have some really big problems, and it was going to be like that one way or another. But now we have an old man, you could say a buffoon. I would feel bad for him if he wasn't an evil POS before his alleged senile state. Now, is he actually senile? It could be an act. I really don't trust them that much. I am that cynical. It could be an act. It could be that there is a CIA mask on some individual behind, and that's not really Biden. Who knows what's going on in this theater? But the fact is, he can't be held accountable in the court of law, according to the most recent documents that came out. So what's going to happen between now and the time he's done? But this article it kind of says you should feel bad for him. He's an old man. And if he is senile, you should just feel bad for him. But we'll get in. Let's read it. Oh, we got some comments here. Both. Okay. Over in Rumble, Charlotte has been saying a lot. Thank you. I'm sorry I have not kept up. United States patent number 4,877,027, 1989 hearing system. Look it up, guys. Now they have 5G and 6G RF. Yes, you know what's going on. The frequency weapons, man, because you can't see it. It's crazy dangerous. And I got to talk about Chile. Maui, same situation that happened in Maui happened in Chile, and there's some people that are actually painting their roofs blue because they think that it'll stop that. For some reason, blue is protected. The directed energy weapon doesn't burn blue. Whether you believe that or not, there are people in Chile right now painting their roofs blue, so they do believe it, and they just got hit. And there's a lot going on all over the world. It isn't just America. Yeah, lots of good stuff from Charlotte. You know what's going on. Remember, if serving on jury duty is the only way to change these laws, we can always call a trial. Null and void cause. It's unconstitutional laws. 2A says so. Know your Constitution. Absolutely. Constitutionalist all day. And not every Republican, and that's why they call them rhinos, right? I guess if you call yourself Republican, but you're not a constitutionalist, are you a rhino? You let me know. And then we have Connie over here. They have so many conditioned to public health crisis for the greater good and carbon emissions. I know, carbon emissions. Yeah, even Elon Musk, I got to talk about that too. Calling just last week for a carbon tax. A tax on breathing. Elon Musk, not our friend. Not freedom friend, that's for sure. And Connie also says, of course, he will not be held accountable. Too many people are empathetic for him. Yeah, well, again, I would be myself because I've been around elderly my whole life, and right now I'm taking care of my mother-in-law, and so I am sympathetic to the elderly. However, his wife shouldn't be parading him around like this. He should not have ever gone up for the presidency, and the fact of the matter is he's a career politician that has some awful moves in his past that the war on drugs, for instance, which is just a war on the people. So Biden, just as bad as all the other career politicians, and now that he's old, we're not supposed to say that he is a terrible president and that he's supposed to be our commander-in-chief, and yet he can't be held accountable. Most of us were told at some point in our lives that we were too young to play with our older siblings, too young to get into a certain movie, too young for a particular job. I remember once in my 30s when trying to convince a publisher to take on a book about a dying professor, being told you're too young to know what a memoir is. Why don't you come back in 20 years? It stings being told something like that, but with youth on your side, you soothe the pain by knowing you have years to prove the doubters wrong. It's the opposite when they say you're too old. That's like being led to an abyss, and there was a tsunami pushing President Joe Biden toward that brink last week. It was spurred by a special counsel report on Biden's handling of classified documents. The counsel, Robert Hur, declined to press charges against the president, but rationalized it by saying he likely couldn't get a conviction from a jury because Biden would be seen as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory who had diminished capabilities. That was about the worst assessment Biden could get. But again, it's by design. There's going to be a series of events in order to get people on board with getting him out and putting somebody else in. The 81-year-old president exacerbated the situation by calling a hastily assembled news conference that night. It lasted 13 minutes and saw Biden snapping at reporters who were shouting questions about him stepping down. After insisting there was nothing wrong with his memory and that he was the best person to lead this country for the next 4 years, he then stepped in it again by confusing Mexico with Egypt. Now, His age, memory, and competency have been in furious debate ever since. It's been in debate since he's been in. Let's just be real, okay? And I wonder about this whole bumbling thing because he reads the teleprompter. So if he's just reading the teleprompter, is he reading misinformation on the teleprompter to enhance his bumbling look? Like, what is the end game here? That's what we have to figure out. Because they want him out and somebody else in. They want a civil war. United Nations wants to be here out in the open, and they want no guns. So knowing that they want these things, how are they going to get there? Finding pity for the president. Now, Biden cannot deny that he has made concessions to age. The way he walks, the way he loses focus, his memory mix-ups, which recently saw him referencing two world leaders as if they were still around when in fact they are both dead. There are legitimate questions as to whether Biden is fit for another year of the hardest job in the world, let alone 4 years after that. But let's step back for a moment. There is something unseemly, even borderline nasty, in screaming at an elder leader that he is too feeble to continue. This reminds me of something I think about quite often. And you're walking through the forest and you see a huge tree that's lived a very long time and has dominated its part of the forest. You see that it's died and that it's going to fall. And then what's going to happen when it falls? A bunch of new trees are going to be able to pop up, and a bunch of new life where once it had shade over that area because it made its stake. And that was that. It was a tree and now it's dead. Well, what happens now, just like corporations, what happens now is that the government comes and stakes up that dead tree. And so all of the life that would naturally occur, all of the blossoming that would happen naturally is no longer able to occur because it's being artificially propped up. And that's exactly what's happening here. These elderly people, you retire at 65 in any other job. Why at 80 years old are you still in politics? Get out. Get out and let younger generations come into their place. He shouldn't be there. He should have never been there. I am not a fan of many of Biden's policies, but I admit feeling sorry for him on Thursday night. This is why I like free market capitalism, by the way, because if an entity is too big to fail because of being propped up, well, then nothing else can be put in its place. No other little companies can form and grow. Because that big tree, that big company is just going to take the algorithms or put you in court until you can't afford to be a company anymore. I am not a fan of many of Biden's policies, but I admit feeling sorry for him on Thursday night with reporters shouting, his eyes squinting, his demeanor alternatively confused and angry, insisting that he did indeed know the date of his son Beau's death, contrary to the prosecutor's claims, but didn't say so during his testimony because it wasn't any of their damn business. It reminds you of the way an old lion is forced out of the pride by younger, stronger challengers. It is a tipping point of obscurity and the inevitable turn toward death. Jeez. Again, just go, I would say hang out with your grandchildren, but I don't know if I trust them. So just retire. You should have retired at 65, okay? Most people, you never should have been in politics, but anyway, most people can or one day will relate. There's plenty weird about the special counsel's report. On one hand, he found that Biden was indeed willfully taking classified documents, stored them in a dangerously accessible place, and spoke about them with at least one person, the ghostwriter on his books. On the other hand, Hur said he couldn't prove all this beyond a reasonable doubt and didn't like his chances in front of a jury because Biden would be sympathetic and doddering witness whom they would likely feel sorry for. He also went into how many times in 2 days' worth of interviewing that Biden couldn't remember the details or that detail from his life, including when he left office as vice president. You understand why Biden's supporters are screaming that anything beyond not going to charge him is inappropriate. Right. How dare you say the truth? That he is incompetent and has been, at least on the outside, in the theater, in the play, he has been incompetent the entire time. And you understand why Donald Trump supporters are screaming, wait a minute, if Biden took documents, stored them badly, and spoke about them, how on earth is he not being charged when our guy is facing felony charges on the same issue, right? So it helps propagate the civil war that they want. These are legitimate questions, but it is telling that the document debate, which, by the way, of course, all the charges were dropped as far as I know on Trump, as they should have been, or at least he's on the ballot. Was that what it was? I'm sorry. I know that all the charges are going to be dropped. He will be on the ballot. And so all this, again, is theater. Nothing actual is going to touch him. To me, that indicates that most Americans really don't care about documents they can't relate. But they can surely relate to age. How old is too old, and when is the right time to step in for an older loved one's sake? So many times last week, I heard TV hosts or radio callers speak of my elderly mother or my aging grandfather when discussing Biden. They liken the forgetfulness, tripping, irritability, and memory loss they witnessed at home to what is happening with the president. The difference is, in their case, it's a private matter. With Biden, it's happening in front of the world. Yes, again, he's in charge of the biggest military in the world, allegedly. Allegedly. How do you know it's time to sit down? Okay, right here. Biden supporters suggest he is vigorous and sharp. But in a nation where we assume all politicians are lying, who believes that? The fact that Biden almost never does news conferences, that he is skipping even the softball Super Bowl interview, that he takes a great deal of weekend breaks and is quickly hurried along before he can engage in any free-form questions and answers speaks louder than his handler's insistence that he is fit as a fiddle. Of course, if you're a thinking human being. On the other hand, does confusing names and dates mean you can't make important policy decisions? Yeah. Is there still value in the wisdom of experience, even if the body is slowly giving in? It's not his body that's slowly giving in, and it's his mind. I mean, sure, you could say his body is too, but really what we're talking about here is his mind. I can't claim to have the answer on this, but I do know there are ways to debate a man's effectiveness without screaming for him to go away, making fun of his lapses, or mocking the biological slippage that awaits us all. Again, how many people did he put in jail? How many lives did he ruin? How many fathers are in jail right now because of the war on drugs? How many kids grew up in fatherless homes because of that war on drugs? Just on and on and on. He is not a good man. He's done knowingly done a lot of awful things to our fellow Americans. So to say that we can't criticize him because he's old, sorry, not going to work. Remember how you felt when they said you were too young? You took solace in the future, but when the world says you're too old, your future is the problem, and that's sad. Emerson once reminded us the best tunes are played on the oldest fiddles. Perhaps we can learn to criticize the melody while still respecting the instrument. Again, why have any respect for that instrument? Just because he's the president, I'm supposed to respect him? No, don't think so. Don't think so. All right. I went quite long, and I got to go make lunch for the fam. So thank you guys for hanging out. I hope that I was clear. I understand that people need money to fight things, but I also understand that we, the people, need to be able to fight these things without money. So where do we go from here? Thank you guys for hanging out. You can take my opinions or you can leave them, and I totally respect you either way. Like, I respect that you're a human being that has your own thoughts, and I love you. And I hope that you can love your neighbor as much as possible and try to understand. You can have empathy with somebody but not justify their behavior. And so try to do that. Try to have empathy for your neighbor. Doesn't mean you're justifying their behavior, but anyway, that's all I have. I hope I see you guys tomorrow. I have more connections with Erik Prince and Trump, but I'm going to get into that either tomorrow or Wednesday, depending. So thank you for all your work, Michelle. Tremendous information. Thank you, Connie. I am glad that I'm glad that I can do this. You know, right now I have the time because of the nature of caretaking. And so I thought might as well spend as much time as possible to gather the information because I know not everybody has that time. So all I can say is thank you. And I see you guys tomorrow. I love you.